Joshua Zirkzee. I don't know a lot about him, right? I didn't really know who he was until we were linked with him. So, Yusuf, you do. I feel like you know kind of the strengths and the weaknesses, and you know, what would he do for United?
Zirkzee, yeah. The short answer is a little bit like how Martial was kind of 1920 time. Not quite as good, obviously, but a little bit like that. The long answer is, technically he is fantastic. Like, he is just, his touch, his dribbling, where he works through tight spaces, he's fantastic. He's one of those players where he doesn't play like a typical striker. He likes to drop, he'll get on the ball, he'll dribble. And for his size, he's about 6'4", but he moves with so much grace. He is a really talented player, and I think he brings a lot to this team. I don't think he's better than Hojlund, but I don't think he needs to be better than Hojlund. What he is a very different kind of player to Hojlund. He's not your kind of typical striker, out and out number 9, the way Hojlund, someone's going to get in the box, really be a nuisance for the defenders. Zirkzee is going to be the player who's kind of dropping in, getting on the ball, getting us out of tight situations and kind of releasing our other attackers on the transition. So I don't know if you remember under Solskjaer when we used to play Man City and other big teams, Martial, what he was so good at was, obviously we spent a lot of the game with them having the ball, we'd be under pressure, we'd go along and we'd find Martial, and his touch, his ability with the ball would just get us out of tight situations, slow the game down and drag us up the pitch a little bit, and I think Zirkzee will do a bit of that for us.
So he's, as you said, he's someone who offers something different to Hojlund. Will that be, therefore, good for Hojlund in the way that you got a different, or is that better for Ten Hag, or is it better for Hojlund that is someone who's a different profile?
I think it's a positive for both, to be honest. I think if it was someone who was the same as Hojlund but better, it wouldn't be that good for Hojlund. This is someone who's different to Hojlund, so it gives him not only competition but someone to actually be a bit of a reference and like improve a bit. Now granted, Zirkzee, he's not a really experienced striker, he's only 23, he's a couple years older than Hojlund, but he's got, you know, those qualities that Hojlund doesn't have, and Hojlund will look at him and think, right, now I know where to improve. It's just absorbing all that information just from seeing how Zirkzee trains, how he plays. It happens a lot in football, and I think Zirkzee brings a lot that Hojlund will look at and think, now I need to add this to my game. And Hojlund's got the ability, he's got the raw talent to add that to his game. And at the same time, Zirkzee might look at some of Hojlund's qualities. He might think, I want to be the starting striker over Hojlund. This is what he's doing, right, I need to add this to my game now. So they'll be good for each other if their mentalities are right, and I think that their mentalities are right.
Having two strikers who are young, hungry, obviously want to play, want to score, and establish themselves on the world stage in the best league in the world, in the Premier League, at one of the biggest clubs in the world, does that, obviously that would provide a lot of competition, but does that also give Ten Hag, do you think, more flexibility
100%.
With potentially playing, so two strikers, like, so those who don't know, obviously Yusuf is a writer for UtdDistrict. He's a fantastic analytical writer, and yesterday we published an article, was it yesterday or the day before yesterday? Yesterday, surrounding Zirkzee and what he'll do. And so if you want to know more about that, you know, visit our website, search Zirkzee in the search bar, the article will come up. But so you mentioned about the tactical flexibility and potential change in formation that Ten Hag could have. And maybe that could be something that will help him have more of a Manchester United style, the style that Jason Wilcock wants, by having potentially the option of playing two strikers.
Yeah, and we saw at the end of last season, Ten Hag did make that an option at times. The final few games, obviously, we used the diamond. And Zirkzee brings a lot of options for the diamond, particularly. I mean, you can go for a more typical 4-4-2, have Zirkzee be that striker who typically just drops in, gets on the ball a bit more, almost creates like a 10, and then a more direct runner like a Garnacho or a Rashford or Hojlund playing with him. But one thing I think a lot of people haven't thought about that's a really interesting option is Zirkzee, because of how he plays, can actually play at the tip of a diamond. So diamonds, I remember United Arena a few years back explained how diamonds work in a really good way. So you can either have it as like a 10 almost, and you've got two strikers, or you can actually have the tip of the diamond play be almost like a false 9, and your two forwards split and play almost as like wingers. And I think Zirkzee can play in that false 9 or at the tip of the diamond well. Bruno has shown he can play a little bit deeper. So let's say, for example, we signed Amadou Onana. Not Andre Onana, Amadou Onana. I don't know if anyone saw that clip the other day that he got.
Yeah, that was hot. That was a shocker.
It's just his accent was the most impressive thing to me. He just switched from, you know, speaking in his normal voice to like sound like a proper northerner.
It's like Isak.
Yeah.
Yeah, Newcastle, Isak sounds like he's from South London sometimes.
But yeah, let's say hypothetically we signed Amadou Onana. You got him at the base. Bruno's one of your 8s. The other 8 can be, you've got options there. You can have Mount, you can have Mainu, you can even use Amad Diallo as an 8. But then Zirkzee as your 10, and then have Rashford and Hojlund, or Rashford and Garnacho as your 2 split strikers. Brings a lot of options. And another thing that I thought about now, the subs. So in games where Hojlund starts, he's going to be on the centre-backs all game. You're kind of thinking he's going to probably get a couple goals, whatever. Later in the game, if we just want to see out a win, you can bring on Zirkzee, and like I said, he can get on the ball and slow it down. Just take those touches, dribble with the ball. Like I said, game management. And then in the big games, for example, if United may have to take a more conservative approach, you can do Zirkzee, like I said, Martial, and with Pogba when he played higher up the pitch. What they did for us is that they can be that out ball, you aim for him, he drags us up the pitch a little bit. And then later in the game, if you want to go for it a bit more, take off Zirkzee, bring on Hojlund, or Hojlund's legs off the bench. That energy, that directness he brings is going to be a pain for centre-backs to deal with.
I feel like we quite haven't seen how fast Hojlund is yet. Because some people I don't think quite realise that he's the fastest player in our squad. He's absolutely rapid, Hojlund is. I think that will be something that we'll be able to see more often next season.
He's probably one of the fastest players in the league, to be honest.
Yeah, he's a quick guy. So one thing that Ed has said, which poses a great question, is he says, so where would Rashford be? They gave him all that money to hold the bench. It's a good point. So let's say we bring Zirkzee in. Like, what does that mean for Rashford? Would it be kind of Rashford would only then play when we're playing 3 up front? Would he then kind of be relegated to a bench role if we sign Zirkzee and play the 2 strikers?
I mean, Rashford can play as one of the 2 strikers, and obviously we saw in the cup final where he started over Hojlund, where a lot of people probably would have said, okay, Hojlund should be the one starting, but I think we'll play a front 3 most of the time anyways. So it's a good point, but I do think Rashford will be like a key player still, and I think it also depends on his confidence. Well, obviously we know Rashford had a really tough season mentally, but I think he'll have a big season next season. I said all along, if the Cavani signing 2021, if we made that signing in that time but just transferred it to now, 2024, that probably would have been perfect for Hojlund. But I think Ineos are making a big statement now. I mean, they've said they want to recruit young, and it feels like a very Ineos-driven signing. Zirkzee, now granted, Ten Hag will have given his sign-off on it, and I mean, Zirkzee's Dutch, so...
He's Dutch, I'm sure he'll be happy with it.
Yeah, he'll be delighted, but feels very much like an Ineos-driven signing, because in the past we would have signed that old veteran striker. Now, Cavani, very injury-prone, he was decent, but how many of those signings have worked for us? Not quite as many.
If they have worked, it's short-term, like Ibrahimovic was short-term. He was gone 15 months after he arrived. Same with Ronaldo. Cavani kind of just disappeared.
Yeah, exactly.
After about 2/3 of a season.
Look, like, it's good. It brings tactical versatility for Ten Hag. It gives Hojlund competition, but also it gives Hojlund a bit of a relief, because in the kind of final few games of last season, he had been struggling. He got a bit of rest, came off the bench. He looked a lot better just for the fact he had that little bit of rest.
Yeah.
And I think people forget as well, when he came from Atalanta, he had that back injury that needed managing. You've got to look after those players. So I think he'll still be the main striker. I don't think Zirkzee is better than Hojlund, but I think Zirkzee is different, and that's very good for us. And in some games, Rashford, Garnacho, players like that, they'll thrive a lot of playing with Zirkzee, because Zirkzee is going to be able to facilitate for them to be their best selves.